We wanted to show those of you that are living here in the valley that we did not forget about you, that you matter to us, you are important to us. And then to listen to some of your needs and desires and some of the issues that you face, because issues that you face being here in the urban area. A lot of times it seems like we don't really think about some of the issues that pertain to you over here. And so we wanted to open our ears, open our eyes, and begin to consider and begin to think about. I face this every day. Voter apathy. Voter apathy, meaning that 4 years not same old. No, 4 years then they couldn't. Those are your true feelings. I understand that, and I hear that. Those are some challenges I, as a candidate for Navajo Nation president, that I carry with me every day. How in the world am I going to begin to answer some of those questions and concerns? How am I going to consider some of those issues that you have here in the valley and other urban areas, not only here in the Phoenix area, but you have Salt Lake, you have Denver, especially Albuquerque as well. Many of you urban Navajos that are here. So where I have to begin to consider some of these issues is the fact that I have to ask myself, why are you here? What brings you here to the valley? What brought you here to the valley? Some of you probably have home site leases. Some of you probably left some of your parents, some of your traditional home that are still there back home. Some of you have probably elders at home and different ones. But why are you here? There are reasons why you are here. That's where I begin my process to address some of your needs. In this case, I also understand, number one, today, that there are many Navajos that have come here to the urban area because they want to live here, because they want to make a home here, because they want to make a life here, because they want to be here, they want to establish themselves here. Either because they feel that there are better schools here in the urban area, probably because you feel that there are more economic opportunities that are available for you here in the urban setting, and then also to begin to lay some foundation for yourselves in the long term and for the long term. So there's that need that's there. There's that desire that's there. So a lot of times when you're on I'll say the res, is that we don't think about these things. When we think about it from over there, we just think that you just came over here just to run away from the problems of the Navajo Nation, or that you just want to have the convenience of the modern luxuries, hot water, sanitation, get in your car or even call DoorDash and you have Burger King come into your house, or pizza delivery, these kind of things that people think of. But it's not. I understand that it's not, because I have a lot of relatives who live here in the urban settings. So that's number one. There are Navajos who want to live here, who want to make a home here, who want to make a life here. Na kikuna Yá'át'ééh, some of you relatives that came here, it was temporary at the time you came here. And you found that there are more jobs, there are more opportunities available that are here. And when you began to establish yourself in your employment, it was better to be here than to go back and forth. Economic reasons. So some of you are living here because your jobs are here. That seems to be the primary reason why a lot of urban Navajos have moved here, because there are jobs here. And you would want to do the same thing back on the res, but that's not possible because of the number of jobs that are not available. There are a lot of you that are here because you are in transit. What I mean by transit is that you are maybe here temporarily, maybe because you're waiting for a call from some of your union jobs, that it's easier to go from here maybe to the West Coast. Maybe it's easier to go from here to another location because there is a airport here, or there's I-10 that's here. So it's easier for you to do that. So you're in transit. Others are in transit in terms of the fact that you're here because you have easier access to medical facilities, or you have relatives that have easier access to medical facilities. Those are Navajos that are living here in the valley. Now you have students. You have the community colleges that are here. Then you have the universities that are here. For example, Arizona State University. So a lot of these students are now, they transported themselves over here to be a student. But a good majority of you have families. You're non-traditional students. You have spouses, you have children. So you have to establish a home here in either for you to attend class. So those are some of the classifications of individuals that are here. There's something that's common among you, is the fact that you still have those yearning, you still have that desire to exercise your family values that are here. You still are fathers and mothers. You still have children, grandchildren. You still have relatives. Just because you live here, you don't disengage yourself from that. Some of you have ceremonies that you usually attend. Some of you have different family functions that you attend. Because you live here, that it's more economically feasible for you to stay here. So that does not allow you to go back and forth because of the gas prices. $5 a gallon, my gosh, it has quadrupled today. So those are some things that I, as a candidate, has considered as far as I want to understand, who are you? Who are you? Who are they? Now, you've heard, let me go back to my voter apathy. I've heard for so many years that we need to start giving attention to the urban Navajos. I've heard that. I've even heard people say, candidates in previous elections, to say, we should set up a chapter house over in Phoenix. We should set up a chapter house in Albuquerque. We should set up a chapter house in Flagstaff. People have said that. But I've always wondered, what are they trying to say, or what were they trying to do? Now remember, the chapter house is a government. It's a localized government. It's a localized government. So that same mentality, how can you bring that to Phoenix? We don't have grazing rights here. We don't have grazing permits here. We don't have farms here that we can have land use permits that we can use here. But what we have, the majority of you are living in apartments. You are in apartment living. You lease your apartments. Some of you have gone the next step and you have purchased your homes. You have mortgages to pay now. So as far as your major financial responsibilities, that seems to be your major financial responsibility today is where you live at. Now, how does the Navajo Nation government fit into this whole scheme of things? Navajo Nation government, how do they fit into this? Maybe they don't. Maybe they do. So that's a very important question to ask. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. My answer to that is I believe that they do have a say in this. Number one, because you are still Navajo. Just because you move from your chapter areas doesn't mean that you disengage yourself. Services. A lot of you were told that. That is not true. The Navajo law says is that every enrolled member of the Navajo Nation is treated equally. Just the same way, doesn't matter where they live. It doesn't matter whether you live on the reservation or whether you live over here in the urban areas. You're all equal. You're equal to me because I live on the reservation. I'm equal to you because you are here in the urban setting. That is one thing that to me has not been the correct way of addressing your relatives. In this case, so you're all equal. So thereby, because of that, the Navajo Nation government has a responsibility to its citizens. To its citizens. You are the citizen of the Navajo Nation. Then what type of responsibility does the Navajo Nation have towards you or to you? Number one, your living arrangements. Your apartment living, and you have some mortgages. Some of you have bought houses here. And some of you want to buy a house here. You want to purchase a home. You want to go beyond just our apartment living anymore. So to me, that's one responsibility that the Navajo Nation does have to you. So now, how do we do that? An idea that I've had for quite some time is the fact that we need to have some support for those of you that want to buy a house here. How do you do that support? How do you give that support? The number one thing that is involved are two things that are primary in buying a house. Number one, you got to get a mortgage. You have to mortgage your house. Somebody has to lend you the money to do that. So a lot of times, banks and other things, they're very, very strict, and they don't want to take a risk on you. So then we have to begin to make some monies available so that you can mortgage that. The Navajo Nation is in a position today, and has always been, that they are a government that has assets, that has money. Although we tend to be told all the time that we're used to that song on the reservation. But the fact of the matter is that they do have money. So the question is, how much of that money can be appropriated to you citizens if you want to buy a home? And perhaps that there could be a mortgaging process that could be set up. Is it possible? Of course it's possible. Because there's several mortgaging ways of doing, of mortgaging a house. So, I'd like to make that, I want to explore that even more. I want to build that together so that any one of you sitting here, as long as you're a citizen of the Navajo Nation, will have an opportunity to mortgage a home if you want to do that. Because look at it. When you mortgage a home, you begin to appreciate the value of your investments. Rather than just giving it to some landlord and you don't see that money ever again. So I think that that's wealth building, that's security, that's productivity. So I often say that rather than giving your money to a landlord for years on end, why not invest it in a home? It doesn't have to be extravagant, as long as there's maybe 1, 2, 3 bedrooms and maybe something. I think that needs to be created and made available to you over here. Not to say that, well, you don't live on Navajo, you haven't voted in a long time, as long as you have a census number that says that you are a member of the Navajo Nation. That's number one. Number two, along with the mortgage, is that you got to have down payment. Because a down payment is necessary. If you want to mortgage it through Wells Fargo or other mortgaging, you got to have X number of percentage of down payment. So that has to be available for you who want to purchase a home here. A down payment, what loan? So the Navajo Nation is going to have to cough up some money. And so just think about this. They recently bought a $4 million house in Washington, D.C. With that $4 million house calculated at an average price about $250,000, they could have mortgaged at least probably about more than 75 houses. Easy. And they're not going to just lose the money. They're going to make an interest off of it. See, see some of the programs that we need to begin to explore that and bring it here. Not just talk about it, but actually put it together and say, here. So the whole saying of singing the same old song, which is, that's no longer true. That's a down payment. Now, even better yet, the Navajo Nation has money. If you take the whole valley here, there are plenty of land that's available. If the Navajo Nation begins to start investing in that land, say, let's buy 50 acres here. In that 50 acres, you can make that into, build the infrastructure in there and zone it as a residential, and then make agreements with the local governments. That can be a Navajo subdivision. It can be here. So a lot of times we're too caught up on the fact that, well, we're going to build something, a subdivision in Fort Defiance, and then we're going to do a subdivision in Kayenta, and that's over there. Yes. How about over here? It's going to be a lot easier doing it that way over here than it is back over there. So now you have a subdivision or a piece of land. You can build homes on there, tract it out, and then actually have individual homeowners who will buy the home either as a custom home, or it's going to be a subdivision where a lot of the homes are already made. You've seen a lot of signs out here, right, that says Pulte homes. Those kind of homes. So now the advantage to that is going to be that you have land here that there are certain tax breaks you're going to have versus building a home off of that land that the Navajo Nation didn't buy. You see the difference here. Your mortgage and everything's going to be a little lower than you would be either buying or building a home on a separate tract of land. These are for those of you that want to stay here and make a living out here. You need to be given some of those opportunities to do that. Some of the plans that we have in place right now. This isn't just something that I'm talking about. We actually have financial people, mortgage builders that are working on this campaign to make this happen. Case. And I know that you are like that also. Now, you have also apartment living. The same way again. Why not buy those tracts of land and build apartments? Not projects. I didn't say projects. I said build decent apartments, which you can actually go for a lower cost in terms of rental. For those Navajos that want to live in apartment living, the Navajo Nation can provide that. Not only own it, but also go into an agreement. Maybe some of you would want to be the apartment managers. Maybe you want to own it. Why not empower you to say that maybe she wants to own an apartment here, but that through the Navajo Nation, through a financial agreement, that at least the apartment complex can be built here. Because it's almost crazy now to find a decent apartment where it's in a safe neighborhood, where it's good for children, near schools, near grocery stores, but at a reduced rate as far as your leasing rates. So that's another idea for your apartment living individuals that want to be here. So your home, your now you have students that are here. It's not reinventing the wheel. Why doesn't the Navajo Nation even build dormitories itself? If you go to Arizona State University, you go to Mesa Community College, Grand Canyon University, and all the other community colleges here, you have a good number of Navajo students that are here. So why not build a dormitory yourself? That makes no sense today. That we're buying $4 million homes that I hear that is haunted. That we can't even build a dormitory for our students. That's an advantageous because it will be at a lower rate than what they would be paying to the university for room and board. What I'm calling today, we need to start thinking outside of the box. That's the main thing. We need to begin to start thinking outside of the box. And I'm giving you specific ideas and the specific things. I'm not just saying, yeah, we're going to help you over here and we know your needs and I'm just glossing it over that you hear. I'm actually giving you specific ideas. You will know that this campaign is doing that. We're giving people, our Navajo people, specific solutions and specific ideas of how to go about it. Now, our students. Now, you need services. The services that have to be here, there are necessity. It's a necessity. Why do you need to go drive all the way back to Tuba City, Crown Point, Shiprock, Window Rock, just to enroll your children to get them a CIB? Why do you need to do that? Why isn't there an office here where the CIB can be applied for here in the valley? Think about it. It's the most simplest thing, but it's not here. Number two, why are there no records that are readily available here in the valley? If you need vital records here in the valley for Navajo citizens, you have to go back to your agencies to do that. Shiprock, Crown Point. Guess what? Hardship. It showed us just how inept, how disorganized, and how much we didn't even know what the heck we're doing as a Navajo nation to maintain records. But meanwhile, if you look at the tribal budget, there's a heck of a lot of money that gets appropriated for the Office of Vital Records. So those services, it's very simple, Nahalinda. It's important. We need to have those services here. Number two, that's enrollment and other things that you're going to need. Then we can expand those services. It could be veteran services. It could be other services, such as behavioral health. So one of the questions that was posed today was just the fact that here's the deal. Why is it that the Navajo Nation appropriates a whole lot of money to give services to Navajo citizens all around? But Navajo citizens out here in the urban areas do not get those services. So one of them is that why do you have to go to Indian Health Service? Why do you have to go to other service providers for you to get services? Number one, because it's available, but it's limited. You have to compete with the other tribal members. They usually get priority, isn't it? If you go to Salt River, a lot of times you get tossed over and either over their tribal members. So we need to set up a place where maybe twice a week that the Division of and Department of Behavioral Health Services can come here because you have the same issues. It doesn't matter whether you live here or it doesn't matter whether you live out there. Number one, I'll give you one example, domestic violence. You have domestic violence issues the same way as it is back home. It's the same. So why is it that those services, yes, you can go to the Maricopa County, you can go to the state of Arizona, you can do all these things, but you have to compete with others because there are other non-Navajos. So why not have a specific service just for that, for Navajos? The other one is this. I've been practicing law. I have a law office in Farmington, New Mexico. I've been practicing law for the last 20 years. And through that work that I'm doing, one of the things I've always wondered was that why does a Navajo over here have to drive all the way to Farmington, New Mexico to retain me so that they could get legal services that pertains to tribal issues. Number one, probate. Number two, quiet title. If there is an issue with the Bebanal sos, there's land issues. Even though you're here, they're still over there. So you have to tend to that. So my question, yes, there is the regular county legal services, state legal services that are provided here. But why not create and maintain an office for legal services for Navajos here? It can be the simplest thing. It could be a service where you could have probate issues. You can take care of it here. And maybe there's a contracted attorney that can be here. You can even coordinate it with the Arizona State School of Law here, at the law school here, and to have those services through that service provider. All you have to do is email it to the courts. You can even appear by phone from here. So those are the legal services that are. The legal services could be local also. Many of the Navajos, they get into trouble. Yes. Number one, DUI on a Friday night, driving from somewhere. They need lawyers here. They need those type of services that are going to be provided at a reduced rate. Those are some things that we need to do. Medical services the same way. Right now, especially those of you that do not have health insurance. Yes, if you qualify, then you go through Medicaid and Medicare, but it's not everybody. There is a whole lot of Navajos that are in between. Either you make too much money or you're not qualifying on this other end. So you're kind of in between. Those medical services that are there, then there's called contract health. Not necessarily through the Phoenix IHS here, but through the Navajo Nation. It's easier to do it out here than it is on the reservation. Again, that could certainly be created here so that contract health could, managed care, the services can be provided. You don't have to go to Indian Health Service. You don't have to go to the Phoenix Indian Hospital, Indian Clinic. Why? Because you get there 7:30 in the morning, you finally get some aspirin about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Ashaniya. So you have others that you have to compete with. So healthcare for you urban Navajos over here, there has to be that here. So that's a role of the Navajo Nation government. But here's the beauty of it. It's not just the Navajo Nation government. There's things called cooperation and cooperated efforts. You have the state of Arizona. You have the county that's here. And then you have the federal government. There is a way to package this in either to do this. And then you also have those of you that are entrepreneurs. This is a classic example. Mr. Little. I never knew that there was a Navajo that owned a Dickies here. It was like, wow. There are those of you that are entrepreneurial minded. You are thinking about, how do I set up a business here? Because you don't want to work for anybody. You want to challenge yourself to do that. We stopped at a place here just this afternoon. We wanted to stop by. There was a place called Somebody's Fry Bread in downtown Mesa. We stopped over there, but it's not open yet. So we've been going into this whole spiel about supporting small businesses. I'm a strong believer of small businesses. I have small businesses under me. Every entrepreneurial-minded Navajo I'm going to support because it's the greatest reward in the world. It's the greatest feeling. True. We don't work 40 hours a week. We don't work 80 hours a week. We bust our butts in either to get through. But at the end, to say that this is all mine, I did all of this, that's the greatest reward, the greatest feeling in the world. So the same way, if there are other Navajos who want to start a business here in the valley, let's support them. Let's support them with capital. Number one, 80% capital. You have to have capital in either to do something. Then through that, the capital can be broken up into several things. There's short-term capital, there's long-term capital. Short-term capital meaning that, let's say you want to start a concrete business. And then let's say your concrete business, you get a bid. You want a bid, you get to do X number of thousands of square feet, but you don't have the capital to pay for the concrete and all the work and your workers. So you got to borrow some money quick. Short-term capital. When you finally get paid for that, maybe you can use that bid contract as collateral, and then you can pay that back. Your credit rating is going up at the same time. See, these are the kind of things that the Navajo Nation can certainly provide and help you out with. It's not a handout, but it's certainly something to push you along. The same way, the zoning, I said. If the Navajo Nation buys the land, and if they don't want to put houses on it or apartments on it, make it a business zone. They can do a little strip mall like this and then break it up into individual businesses. And maybe Navajos can have priority there. They will have certain tax incentives. They will have certain things that will be advantageous to put their business here rather than taking it somewhere else. So now you have a bunch of businesses that are Navajo owned, and the capital and the money stays here. That it goes back to you. You don't have to pay all these taxes. Remember, in this Phoenix Valley, you have communities where it's predominantly Hispanic. You have communities that are predominantly Vietnamese. You have communities that are predominantly Arab. You have communities that are predominantly from the Eastern Europeans. That's how they set it up. Ebenina, and they flourish. Banzukes, that's how they do it. So Nihe, as Navajos here, we're in numbers here, we're big enough here in the valley that we never even thought of doing that. That's a community. That's community building for you. Because if you go to some of these communities that are over there, that needs to change. So that's what I mean. We can build the Navajo community. Community building is not just physically living together. Community building is harnessing your economic opportunities and making something of it. That's small businesses. That's entrepreneurial. That's getting tax advantages because you're Navajo. Now, yeah, I'm not going to tell you this is what I'm going to build and that's where Chinli, that's where Fort Defiance. I gave you some specific ideas, and I'm telling you how we can pay for it. That's the number one. This is how we can pay for it. Now, let's say you run a successful pizzeria here, and maybe it's going to be valley-wide. Who is to say you can't do that? in Tuba City. Now you know you got experience. You got capital now. You have experience. You got something that you're going to take back home and you can set it up over there. That small business building. Those are the things that we're talking about as the Justin Jones for Navajo Nation President campaign. He shall listen to it. Did they give you specific ideas, solutions? No. They told you the problem again. We already know that. You tell us every 4 years, open the paper, and we know what the problem is. We're listening for solutions. We need solutions. That's what you need to demand now. I want solutions. How are you going to do it? Again, how are you going to pay for it? Hey, that's the main thing. Anybody can say, how are you going to pay for it? Those are important questions. We had a really good discussion today. Build community building. Yes, it has its function. Yes, it has its role. The Phoenix Indian Center. Bless its heart, bless its soul. I know a lot of services are being rendered there. There are different funding sources. There's state funding, federal funding, and some of them are tribal funding from the local tribes as well as Navajo. It's a smorgasbord of services and to serve a smorgasbord of people, intertribal coalition of Arizona, different things. Now, how about Navajo specific? A lot of times you can't just do a Navajo specific program because of the way that the funding is situated. Ebenina. So Ebenina, number one, you can't go back over there every week or every other day. Why not bring it here? Some of these services. I've heard, and Dishanella, he's been running some good programs through the Phoenix Indian Center about Navajo culture and language programs that are there. But he needs funding. He needs more of an emphasis to do that are going to be targeting you. So these little children, they're going to be growing up out here. But that doesn't mean that they have to grow up out here without having to be taught some of their clanships, maybe some Navajo language, maybe some of their history. That needs to come through here. That needs to be set up. And that can be arranged through several funding sources and to upscale that and bring that over here. And I think the beauty of a lot of things is, and I worked on a project when I was in law school in Lawrence, Kansas. We had a big Indian community there. So one of the things that I was involved with in terms of building that is that how do we serve the Indian community there in Lawrence? Some of them have different ways of belief. So we ended up making an agreement with Haskell Indian Nations University. I call it Native American Church. Nana traditional ceremonies, and then some of them have Christian values. So now, when I come here to the valley, I have a lot of relatives who are like that as well. So, where do they go? They have to go next door. There are some good relatives that are over there. But then again, some of these ceremonies that can be done over here, not the major 5-day ceremonies, some of those that still can be accomplished over here. Where do you go for that? It's a little strange to try to do Tinagye on the 3rd floor of an apartment complex, isn't it? So then, I think that there has to be a facility that we need to build here for the people here in the area. A facility large enough that if there's going to be a large gathering, they have the space and they have the cooking facilities to do that, because food is the major part of any gathering. Who is to say even just to have culture gatherings, you need a facility. And what really baffles me is the fact that it doesn't really even cost all that much. It doesn't cost $1 million. But that's something that I think that people need here. And I think that even just we're going to have a big old birthday party with at least. So that community, it surrounds that. We're going to have a reception. It's kind of strange to try to put your sheep in an apartment complex. We're trying to bring that here. If you want to have maybe some church services through that, you can gather there. That's community building. We're trying to create, maintain, and try to give a good community spirit rather than driving 6 hours, 7 hours back home and then coming back for the weekend because you didn't get leave on Monday. So those are the things that we're talking about. We have on paper, it's already being calculated, and then we're talking about where do we get the funding for this? How do we get the funding? And I've been telling the people back home is that my role as the president of the Navajo Nation are several, but not many. Number one, my role is to empower you. I have to empower you because I am empowering you because I have confidence in your skills. I have confidence in your intelligence. I have to trust you. I have to have confidence in you. Number one is empower you. Number two, I have to support you, Kodo. I have to, whatever you want to do, I'm not going to be the one telling you how to do it. You're the one that's going to determine that yourself because you know best what your issues are over here. So I have to make sure that I support whatever you decide to do. My role as the president is not to tell you who, where, what, and when. That's not my role. My role is to support you. Okay, if the Navajo Nation has a tractor sitting here, in ask Mr. Jones, President Jones, that should go, see, that's support. I'm supporting you. That's number two. Number three, my role as the Navajo Nation president, I have to look for that money for you. That's my role, responsibility. Those of you that the better late Aronde ni yolille hota da testula chile yizes yille. Jonde ya lech el da holong da aro kunta hajin khatte. When also le khoda da nani da lech el da holong. You have to herd your sheep over there so that they eat. You see, being an Albanesian president, probably the same thing too. You have to go out there and look for the money. You have to create those coalitions. You have to create those partnerships with other entities. You have state of Arizona. You have Maricopa County here. You have the tribes that are here, the other tribes that are in surrounding areas. You have the federal government. You have private corporations here. You have other 501c3s that are here in the valley. There are a lot of them. So it's just coalition and partnership building that creates that funding. So you see what that's my responsibility. And number 4, my responsibility as your president is I have to defend you. Within the school districts, now a nation through its sovereign powers can come here and say, hey, now students need if they want to graduate with long hair and put feathers in their graduation cap, let them do it. To defend you. That's my responsibility as the president. That's the difference of this type of leadership. A lot of times your politicians today, they use this other word. They say, that's a little different. That's the proper term. Means that see, it takes several. That's what it is. You help me, I help you. In the Daito Hantoda Chini Hashkishni, Quaggy Elia, at the Yotizo, Ishadi Cow, Yellow, Ikadehut Adon, his old me, Ibe is on in Haigilla. Ebi Yij in the day, a Hika Yed, Adon the day, in the day, a Hitilzim, a Hanhasan, a Ha Jopa. The end of the 80, Yoho, Nini, a Chi, yes, oh, Ada is me, the Nelia, with Ya, Ate, and Ite. It's not foreign to us. It's not something that just came somewhere. We live by this resiliency. We live by this creed. We live by this law. From time immemorial. Ayen oyo patati kre. Ayen oyo kojigo. Kwe tin hani degis anagel kajon tin on gido nida. Kojun jono tin. Kade kojen le se kate do the wizit kate dan gisnanda ikra se binda it aho. Let's get back over to the road over here. If you look at our t-shirts, everything that we have. We have to protect that sovereignty. We have to preserve it too. Just because you live here doesn't mean that you disengage from that. You live it every day over here. Let's upscale it some more. Let's Nana, let's live that over here because it doesn't matter where you live. You still can apply that to your life. To each other, That Hashi, so hey, the Quagan, but John Collins, one late not native, then the Isha or Tea. Asian kid, Hokushina, then they camel banish or wasn't it Bell Avenue, because she got the key, she made the benediction. A adults called the other shall not eat the way out on the carpet and the night edition circle cake. See? You're helping one another. That's the goal here. That's our sovereignty. So so I'm really glad and happy that this many of you showed up here at Dickey's and this Navajo-owned establishment here. And it's not like somewhere out in the middle of the world. We're talking right here in Scottsdale, Arizona. Scottsdale, Arizona, Dickey's. So thank you for this opportunity to share some thoughts with you, to share some ideas with you. And I'm number 4 on the ballot. Ishan D, you don't have to go anywhere else. Number 4. And make sure that you are registered. It ends Friday, 5 o'clock. You have to register to vote by Friday at 5 o'clock. You have a Navajo election officer that's here all week here in Phoenix. Register to vote if you have not done so. You can't do it online. You can't just show up one day and say, hey, I'm third. You have to bring your CIB. You have to bring some ID with you so that they can register for you to vote. And follow us on our webpage and our Facebook page. Also, I know many of you do. Hey,